Her paw prints were all over the window, like she was trying to write a message no one could read. That's how I found Scarlet, a 4-month-old German Shepherd puppy locked in a baking hot sedan under the Arizona sun. It was just past noon in Scottsdale and the asphalt shimmered like water. I was walking back to my truck when I saw the car, parked crooked, windows up. No shade. No noise. Then a flicker of movement caught my eye. At first I thought I imagined it. Just a shadow shifting behind the glass. But I walked closer and there she was. Curled on the back seat, panting, tiny chest rising fast. Her black and tan coat was soaked with sweat. She saw me and pressed her little paws against the window. There were dozens of marks like that, like she'd been begging someone, anyone. I froze. My name's Rick. I'm a 41-year-old auto mechanic and I've seen engines explode, tires shred at 80 miles per hour, people survive things they shouldn't. But I've never seen anything like this. A puppy, abandoned in a locked car, in this heat? She wasn't barking, she wasn't crying. She was just staring, like she'd already stopped believing someone would come. I looked around. No one. The strip mall lot was nearly empty. The store next door had been closed since last year. I called 911 with shaking hands, gave the plate number, location, everything. Then I dropped to my knees by the car and whispered through the glass, "Hold on, sweetheart, help's coming." She didn't move, just pressed her forehead to the window and closed her eyes. Scarlet? I didn't know her name then, but I felt it. The fire inside her. The will to survive. She wasn't making a sound, but she was still fighting. I leaned against the hot metal and waited. I could hear my own heart. But hers? Was it still beating? The dispatcher said a rescue unit was on the way, but minutes in this heat felt like hours. The temperature that day had already hit 97, and inside the sealed car it had to be over 120. I could see it. The ripples in the air behind the glass, the plastic steering wheel warping under the sun, and right there in the middle of it all was this tiny German Shepherd puppy. Her tongue lolled from her mouth, dry and pale. Her chest was still moving, but slower now. I crouched by the window, shielding my eyes, trying to make contact. "Come on, baby. Stay with me," I whispered, tapping the glass gently. She flinched, but didn't look. Her head drooped, like she couldn't lift it anymore. That was the first moment I panicked. I glanced around the lot. A few people had walked by, most not even noticing. One guy in a business shirt looked straight at me and said, "It's just a dog." I swear my whole body went cold. Just a dog. "She's a puppy," I snapped back. "She's alive." I stood up and yanked on the door handle. Locked, of course. I circled the car, tried the others. Nothing. The sun was like fire on the metal. My palms were burning. I thought about smashing the window. I had a wrench in my truck. But I hesitated. If the glass shattered wrong, it could hurt her. The last thing I wanted was to make things worse. So I did the only thing I could. I knelt back down and kept talking to her. "My name's Rick. I've got 2 kids. We've got a backyard and a cold bowl of water waiting. You just gotta hang on." She didn't answer, of course, but somehow I felt like she heard me. Her ear twitched, her eyes fluttered. I could see the pads of her paws raw from pressing against the searing hot glass. Her whole tiny body was shaking now, and then I heard it, the distant wail of a siren. It was coming fast. Closer, louder. But was it fast enough? I stood in the middle of the lot waving both arms, heart pounding. When they pulled up, I was already yelling. "Puppy in the back seat. She's not moving." 2 firefighters jumped out before the truck even stopped rolling. One carried a long, flat tool, some kind of wedge. The other had gloves and a thermal scanner. They didn't waste a second. One glanced through the fogged-up window and they moved like it was life or death. Because it was, the man with the wedge slipped it into the top of the door and began working it, gently but fast. The other looked through the window again and muttered, "She's fading, dehydrated, breathing shallow." That was all I needed to hear. I turned away. I couldn't look. Then, pop. The door unlocked. They opened it slowly. The heat that poured out hit us like a furnace blast, and there she was, curled in the corner of the back seat, her little paws stiff, her body limp. The black vinyl had scorched parts of her fur, and her breath was so quiet I thought I imagined it. One of the firefighters leaned in and scooped her up with gloved hands. "I've got her," he said, his voice tight. He passed her to me without hesitation, and just like that, I was holding her. Scarlet. She didn't squirm, she didn't bark. She just sagged into my arms like she'd given up somewhere along the way. Her head lolled against my chest and her fur was burning hot. I felt her heartbeat. Faint. But there. The firefighter said something about the closest shelter with emergency care, but I barely heard it. My whole world was this tiny German Shepherd puppy lying in my arms like a melted candle, so still, so silent. Then she made a noise. A low, shaky whimper, not fear, not pain. Something else. Relief. She knew she wasn't alone anymore, but would she survive the next hour? Scarlett barely moved as we rushed her to the nearest shelter equipped for emergency intake. Maricopa County Animal Care and Control. The firefighters insisted I ride along. Maybe they saw something in my face, or maybe they knew she needed more than oxygen and fluids. She needed someone to stay. The inside of the rescue vehicle was cool, sterile. But my arms were sweating as I held her close, trying to steady my breathing, trying not to panic. Her fur still radiated heat. Her eyes were barely open, half-lidded, unfocused, and she trembled every few minutes. Soft, involuntary spasms that made me hold her tighter. I whispered, "You're okay now, sweetheart. I've got you." It wasn't just something to say. I meant it. I didn't even know this German Shepherd puppy's name yet, but in that moment I was all she had. And somehow I felt like she was all I had too. When we arrived at the shelter, the staff was already waiting with a gurney and IV bags. They worked fast, efficient, cooling towels, fluids, gentle hands. They took her from me gently, and I followed like I didn't know how to stop. "Do you want to fill out a witness form?" someone asked. I nodded, but I couldn't take my eyes off her as they rolled her away. Just before she disappeared behind the exam room doors, she turned her head, just slightly, and looked back. That's when they named her. "Scarlett," one of the techs said softly. "She's got fire in her. She's still fighting." I smiled through the lump in my throat. Scarlett. It fit. Fierce, brave, and still burning inside. I sat in the waiting room for nearly 2 hours, hands still trembling, heart still racing. I kept imagining those paw prints on the glass, the way she'd pressed her body to the window, not barking, not scratching, just hoping. And then a voice broke through. "She's stable. She's sleeping now." I stood up too fast. My knees nearly gave out. "She's strong," the vet added. "She held on longer than most would've. You got there just in time." I swallowed hard, staring at the door that separated me from her. This German Shepherd puppy had survived something no one should endure. Heat, fear, silence. And somehow, she still believed someone would come. Was I ready to believe that too? The next morning I came back. I didn't sleep much. Every time I closed my eyes I saw her in that car. The stillness, the heat waves on the glass, those desperate little paw prints. When the shelter staff saw me walk in, they smiled like they'd been expecting me. "She's alert today," one of the techs said. "Still tired, but hungry." They led me through the back hallway into a quiet recovery room. Scarlett was lying on a soft blanket inside a temperature-controlled kennel, her IV line still taped gently to her paw. The second she saw me, her ears twitched. Then she lifted her head. Not much, just a few inches. But that was all it took. I dropped to my knees. "Hey, baby girl." The tech opened the door and I held my hand out. Scarlett sniffed it, then leaned forward and nudged her nose against my wrist. I felt something pull deep in my chest. They brought in a small bowl of water and she lapped at it like she hadn't seen water in days, which, maybe, she hadn't. She drank and drank until they gently pulled it away. Then she rested her chin on my hand and sighed. I sat there for hours, barely speaking, just watching her sleep. They told me she was about 4 months old. No microchip, no collar. No one had called. No one was looking for her. "She's lucky you found her," one volunteer said. "A few more minutes and..." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. That evening I asked if I could come back tomorrow. They nodded. "She responds to you. We'd love that." I tried to play it off. I'm no expert. I just happened to be there. But that night, sitting in my truck, I whispered to no one. Maybe that's what matters. She didn't know my name. She didn't know my past. But that German Shepherd puppy had chosen me the moment our eyes met through the glass. And I was already afraid of what would happen if I had to say goodbye. By the third day, Scarlett had enough strength to stand. Her legs were shaky and her paws were still tender from the burns, but she took a few steps, wobbly and unsure, and looked around the recovery room like she was seeing the world for the first time. The staff moved her to a larger kennel with a small glass wall facing the hallway, a space used for pups that needed quiet but weren't in critical condition anymore. I came every morning and sat beside her enclosure, reading, talking softly, just being there. That's when I noticed it. Every now and then she would stop whatever she was doing, eating, sniffing, resting, and walk straight to that glass wall. She'd stand close, nose nearly touching, and stare through it silently. Not looking at me, just like she was remembering. One of the texts said, "Some puppies after trauma, they fixate on what scared them most. Sometimes they never stop." I watched her one afternoon standing like that for 5 whole minutes. Unmoving, eyes wide and hollow. I wanted to call her name, but something told me not to interrupt. Not yet. Later, while brushing her fur, slowly, gently, I found myself talking. Not about her, but about me. "When I was 9, I said quietly, I used to hide in the garage. My dad wasn't the kind you waited up for, so I'd sit behind the lawnmower and listen to the cars outside. It felt safer than being inside." Scarlett shifted closer, leaned her head against my leg. "I didn't mean to tell you that," I whispered. She didn't move, just listened. That German Shepherd puppy, 4 months old, no name until last week, had a way of making me say things I hadn't spoken in years. Maybe because she didn't ask questions. Maybe because she understood something I couldn't explain. She wasn't just healing, she was teaching me how to. I didn't know someone had filmed it. The moment the fire crew opened the car, the wave of heat, the way Scarlett collapsed into my arms, I didn't even know who posted it. But one morning I walked into the shelter and one of the volunteers grinned, holding up their phone. "You've gone viral," I blinked. "What?" 2 million views. TikTok. The comments are unreal. People are calling her the glass angel. I watched the clip. It was grainy, shaky. A bystander must have caught it from across the parking lot. But there she was, limp and silent, her small body cradled in my arms. Someone had added soft piano music and overlaid the words. She waited, and someone came. The comments flooded in. I'm crying at my desk. How can people be so cruel and others so kind? This puppy deserves the whole world. But one comment hit me like a gut punch. He didn't just save her. She saved him too. I read it 3 times, then again later that night. Was that true? I'd gone back to work part-time, but something in me had changed. I found myself staring at the bay doors longer than usual, listening to the silence more than the noise. And when I wasn't at work, I was with Scarlett, sitting by her kennel, letting her fall asleep on my boots, watching her learn to play again, cautiously. Like joy was a new concept she wasn't sure she trusted yet. She was getting stronger, her walk steadier, her gaze brighter, and every time someone asked if she was available for adoption, something in my chest twisted. She's not ready, I'd say automatically, but I wasn't sure who I meant, her or me. That German Shepherd puppy had been trapped behind glass, and somehow so had I. It started with a crayon drawing taped to the shelter door, a picture of a puppy in a sunlit yard with the words, "For the window dog, I hope she's happy now." No return address, just a folded corner that said from Lily, age 6. Then came envelopes, dozens, handwritten cards, notes from classrooms, even a box of dog treats shipped from 3 states away. One letter stood out, neat purple ink on lined paper. "Dear Scarlett, I saw you on the internet. My mom says you're very brave." I was scared once too. When I got lost at the store, I cried until she found me. "I hope you don't feel scared anymore. You're not alone. Love, Ellie, 7 years old." I read that letter out loud, sitting beside Scarlett while she gnawed gently on a donated rubber bone. She paused, tilted her head, then placed her paw on my knee. It was the first time she'd done that. The shelter had pinned some of the notes up in the hallway next to a printed photo of her sleeping in my lap. Visitors stopped to read them, some cried. A few even asked to meet her. But Scarlett wasn't ready, or maybe I wasn't. She'd begun to follow me now. Slow steps, always watching. If I left the room, she'd whimper softly. If I stayed, she curled beside me, content just to breathe and sink. Every day she grew more confident, started playing with toys, sniffing the air when new people entered. But there was always that moment, right before she drifted to sleep, when she'd look toward the window and pause, as if to make sure it was open. The shelter director called me into her office one morning. "Rick," she said, "Scarlett's progressing beautifully. She's officially cleared for adoption." I nodded, but my stomach twisted. We've had several serious inquiries. One family even offered to drive in from Nevada. My voice caught before I could speak, because that German Shepherd puppy didn't look at them when they visited. She kept her eyes on me, and I had no idea how to walk away from that. That weekend, a young couple arrived from over 200 miles away. They'd seen the video, read the news articles, and called every day asking about Scarlett. The shelter arranged a private meet and greet. I was invited to stay. Familiar presence, they said. I stood back as they entered the play yard. Scarlett was already outside, tail swaying gently, nose in the breeze. She glanced up as the couple approached, her ears perked. They knelt, held out treats, spoke softly. She stepped closer, then turned and trotted straight to me. She didn't bark, didn't growl, just sat beside my leg and leaned into it. I didn't move. The couple exchanged a look, smiled politely. We totally understand, they said. Looks like she already made her decision. I tried to laugh, but my throat was tight. After they left, I sat on the grass with Scarlett. She pawed at my shoe, then curled up in the shade of my knee, resting her chin on my leg like she always did. Her eyes blinked slow, steady, safe. You know this isn't fair, I whispered. I didn't plan for this. But she didn't care about plans. She only cared that I'd stayed. That night I lay awake thinking of every reason why I couldn't do it. Work, schedule, responsibility. I hadn't owned a dog in years. My kids were older now. My life was settled, quiet, predictable. But when was the last time any of that felt full? I stared at the ceiling and thought about her in that car. Alone. Silent. Waiting for someone to see her. Waiting for someone to care. And I remembered that moment when I reached through the heat and lifted her out, and how she didn't resist, how she melted into my arms like she belonged there. That German Shepherd puppy didn't care about my doubts. She'd already decided. Maybe it was time I did too. The adoption counselor slid the folder toward me. My name was already printed at the top. She's yours, Rick, she said softly. She's been waiting. Scarlett lay curled on a fleece mat in the corner, her eyes watching me without blinking. When I reached for the pen, she stood, slowly, quietly, walked over and placed her paw on the table beside mine. The room fell silent. I stared at her, at the burned pads that had started to heal, at the eyes that once looked hollow and distant, now focused and steady. She wasn't asking for anything. She was telling me, I'm ready. So I signed, and I cried. No loud sobs, just a few silent tears that fell before I even realized they'd come. The staff clapped quietly. Someone handed me a little bag with her vaccination records, a new tag, and a red collar with a tiny silver heart on it. Welcome home, Scarlett, I whispered. She wagged her tail, not fast but steady, like she already knew what the words meant. As we walked out of the shelter together, I held the leash loosely, but she didn't pull, didn't stop. She walked right beside me, step for step, like we'd been doing this forever. In the truck, she curled into the passenger seat and let out the deepest sigh I've ever heard from a living thing. A sigh that didn't just say, tired, it said, I made it. The drive home was quiet, no music. Just her gentle breathing, and my hand resting on the seat between us. Close enough for her to lean in when she wanted. And she did. That German Shepherd puppy had been rescued from the hottest, loneliest place a soul could be left. And now, she was mine. But the truth, I think I was hers all along. Every morning when I open the door to the garage, Scarlett trots in like she owns the place. She does a quick circle, sniffs the toolboxes, checks the sunbeam spot by the back window, then settles beneath my workbench like it's her second home. And maybe it is. Clients love her. Some bring treats just for her. One guy, a regular, asked if she was that viral puppy. When I said yes, he knelt down and whispered, "You've got a miracle on your hands." He was right. It's been 3 months since I brought her home. She's fully healed now, stronger, playful, almost fearless. But she still pauses at windows, not with fear anymore, but with recognition. Like a reminder. She'll put her nose to the glass and stare for a few seconds, then turn back to me like she's checking. Still here, still safe. Always. At night, she curls beside my bed, her breathing slow and steady. Sometimes she has little dreams, her paws twitch, her nose wiggles, and I wonder if she remembers that awful heat, the silence, the waiting. I reach down and touch her back gently, and she settles again. My kids adore her. My daughter, 17, says Scarlett's the most emotionally intelligent creature on earth. My son's teaching her tricks. She's terrible at rollover, but she's mastered stay. Maybe because it's her favorite thing, just being near. And me? I thought I was saving her. I didn't realize she was pulling me out too, from routine, out from silence, from the numbness I'd lived with for years. I didn't realize how badly I needed something to choose me back. That German Shepherd puppy, once limp in my arms and close to fading, now wakes me up with a cold nose and tail thumps that rattle the walls. She doesn't just live with me. She brings me back to life. Every single day. This little girl's journey from abandonment to rescue shows how powerful compassion can be. Scarlett was just a puppy, helpless, alone, and fading in the heat behind locked glass. But someone stopped, someone cared, and that made all the difference. Caring for a rescued puppy is more than love. It's responsibility, it's vigilance, it's pet care. It's listening when no one else hears the cry. It's choosing action when others walk by. It's realizing that saving one life can change two. Scarlett taught me that healing isn't just about survival, it's about trust. It's about learning that not all doors stay closed, and not all people turn away. If her story moved you, please share it. You never know who might be watching, or what silent life still waits behind glass.